All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the TC Lifestyle Fit Podcast. I'm your host, Tim TC Collins. I have one of my favorite people in the entire universe, Dr. Gina Coffey. She is a seasoned pediatrician. She's accomplished a lot in her life, and I'm sure there's a series of obstacles you had to go through to get to the level where you're at in your field today. Mm-hmm. And before we get started, can you tell everyone about who you are, how you got started in pediatrics, correct? Mm-hmm. And also, are there other aspects of medicine that you practice?
So for me, I'm a general pediatrician, and a lot of people think that that's mostly just checkups and sick visits, but we do a lot of mental health nowadays. So they estimate about 40% of what we're doing these days in general pediatrics is mental health.
Wow.
So, and I enjoy it. It's a little bit more tiring, I guess you would say. Just the emotional of being with a family during a really hard time is challenging. But
how do you, as a leader in your field, communicate to those families? How do you stay positive yourself? And how do you project that energy to families who need to be comforted in those moments?
You know, I think the first thing is it's nice that they feel comfortable coming to me. And I sometimes even will say, you know, thank you for feeling comfortable sharing this with me. And I'm sorry you're going through this. Sometimes just hearing that from someone, you know, and then I kind of talk to them about how common their problem is, and that there's other kids feeling the way they're feeling, and that they're not as alone as they think. As far as staying positive, you know, I will admit, you know, after a particularly tough case, I might go home a little worn out, but you get home, you sit down to dinner with your family and pray, and that takes that away. So, I mean, knowing that in the end, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that I can provide the resources that the kids need and their families need to really, you know, feel better and find a good way out of whatever they're experiencing.
Wow. True champions of the universe. How does someone adopt the character or mindset that's required to pursue this field? Is medicine, the practice of medicine, or specifically what you do, pediatrics, is that for everybody?
So I think probably not for everybody. And the reason I say that is that it's just gotten harder and harder to get into medical school. You know, I know when I applied 30 years ago, yeah, it was hard then, but I looked at the statistics recently, and about 17% of kids that start out pre-med drop out. And of the ones who make it all 4 years of undergrad, only 42% get accepted. They have a 42% acceptance rate. And most kids do not get accepted right out of college anymore. So like when I went to medical school 30 years ago, 75–80% of us were right out of college. Nowadays, it's the opposite. It's only about 25% are right out of college. The others have gone on and done a master's, gone to work and done other things, because the medical schools are looking for different things. You know, they're expected to have had research experience, volunteer experience, hospital experience, shadowing physicians, and, you know, only so many hours in a day. I look at it and I think, how do these kiddos do it? It's challenging.
That is amazing.
But I guess, you know, the thing about it is you don't go into it lightheartedly. You have to have the passion for it. And if you have the passion for it, it's absolutely worth all of those things, all that sacrifice.
Wow. Wow. One of my favorite thought leaders is Tony Robbins, and he talks about the commodity of kings and queens is action. So in your field, is it talent? Is there a certain level of talent that goes into being a successful pediatrician or doctor? Or how much of it is just pure ability? And is it like a grit? Is it hard work? Is it effort, or a combination of the both?
I'd say it's a combination of both. You know, you have to have a certain ability in math and science just to get through the coursework, and you know, I use math and science every day, so you certainly have to have that, and love it. You have
Physics,
to love it.
I'm sure. Physics,
less
calculus,
physics, more chemistry, biology, and then just basic math. I mean, be really good at basic math because I'm doing it constantly in my head, especially with pediatrics. You know, in adult medicine, they can memorize one dose and that's it, or one range. And kids, it's different. But then the grit and determination, I think, comes into it too. I think you have to really have decided 100% this is what I want to do and that I'm all in for it. Because it is, you know, there are sacrifices just to get to this point. And also then once you're in practice, sacrifices in your life when you have to put your patients first. So.
Wow, you are a living testimony of just grit and perseverance. And when you got started in your career, pediatrics, you have children, you have a family. So I believe for me, that's one of the most challenging aspects of being a professional in your field. How do you balance your home and work? Because sometimes we take home stuff to work and we take work stuff to home. And I learned that could be a recipe for some unnecessary tough times.
It can.
So how do you personally manage that?
I had my first child when I was in residency.
Oh my goodness.
I was still working 100-hour weeks.
Oh my goodness. And I don't know how you did that.
We were blessed because we had a wonderful woman that helped take care of him, and I worked mostly nights and my husband worked days, so we had help. Beyond that, you know, if someone had said to 18-year-old me, you really can't have it all, I would have been angry. I would have been like, that's an awful thing to tell a person. But there is always something that gives. Yeah. And so for me, you know, you've got all these areas of your life. You've got your work life, your family life, and then taking care of yourself. And I think what most mothers do is the part of taking care of themselves. You know, you always put your kids first. And so it's always making sure that dinner's on the table, that, you know, you're there to pick them up at sports practice, that, you know, you're there for their competitions. And so, yeah, you know, you probably can't have it all. I watched some of my friends who went different paths, didn't have families, and they travel, and they always posted these pictures of beautiful places in the world that I'd love to be. And, you know, at the same time, I think, gosh, I wouldn't trade anything I have to have that. I'd love to do those things, but certainly wouldn't trade what I have. So you do have to kind of pick and choose.
One of the most noble challenges that you can take on as a human being is fatherhood, motherhood. What are some principles that you instilled into your children that you were able to build on from your successes, just as from life and being a professional in your field?
Definitely, you know, just determination, hard work is important to getting what you want in life. That anything that you want is worth. Anything that you want in life is worth putting that in. And that, you know, I guess I always have told my kids, because they loved sports, but I always said, you know, you're good at sports, you're not great at sports, you're going pro in brains. So I would always tell them that, you know,
that's a good perspective. We're all going pro somewhere. Maybe it's on the court, maybe it's in the hospital.
In the hospital, or, you know, but I also always told my kids that, you know, when you graduate college and you start working, whether it's college or medical school or graduate school, you're going to work for 30 or 40 years. And you need to love what you do
to
have a happy life. And
so
literally,
passion,
you know,
be good at it, and love what you do, because there will be unexpected experiences. There will be tough times.
Right. And if you don't love what you do,
you will give up. You'll quit.
You will.
Wow.
So I talk about that with a lot of my patients. I have a lot of families where they have kids who, you know, the parents have not gone to college, and the kids are first generation kids who are really doing well in high school and they want to go to college, but they don't have an adult in their life to talk about. So I, you know, I try at least at visits to bring that up, to ask them where they're at, what they're thinking about, and just tell them, figure out what you're good at and what you love and put it together. My son loves sports like you.
Oh, I love basketball, love football.
He loves every sport. He was a soccer player, but he loves football. He loves everything. And so he's very good at math and science. He ended up studying computer engineering.
Wow, good for him.
And about almost a year ago now, someone reached out to him and he changed jobs, and he now does roster optimization for the NFL.
Wow.
And I said, wow, like all these years I've been saying, that is like Moneyball.
Roster optimization.
Optimization. So basically looking at data, looking at personnel, looking at salary caps, and how do you figure it out? And I thought all these years I've been telling him, you know, make sure what you do is fun every day, that you love what you do and that you're learning and you're excited about it. And so, I mean, so proud of that he found that niche that he's so good at.
Isn't that what we need to communicate more to our young people, is give them an opportunity to build their ambition and to pursue opportunities that not only make them better, but leads to excellence for everyone around them? Like, what are some more perspectives you have on that?
Gosh, you know, as far as what I talk to my patients about, a lot of my patients that I see and come in with periods of depression or anxiety, I talk to them about the fact that might be their superpower. That, like, that's a strength.
That can be.
That is a strength.
Yes,
to feel that deeply means you're an empath. You're an empathetic person.
Yes.
And I always tell them, especially the young ones, and it's cute to see them giggle and smile. But you know what people who are like that grow up to be? You grow up to be pediatricians and nurses and social workers and teachers and caregivers, people who care for people who want to make the people around them better every day, and people who want to make the world a better place.
Wow.
So, you know, I try and encourage them, you know, it's kind of finding the good in the struggle. But
I love that. Find the good in the tough times, because there's always an opportunity to grow. There's always an opportunity to get better, no matter what the circumstances are. I remember you posted a video of your daughter. She was I don't know, she was getting ready to graduate from college, and she did like a cold plunge. And I always wanted to ask you in person about that experience.
Yes, that was insane.
And I saw it. I'm like, wow, that is beast mode. I don't know if I would want to do that. How cold is that water?
So that was my middle daughter, Maggie. She's a junior in college.
She's a junior. What school is she at Notre Dame?
University of Iowa.
Oh, she's at Iowa.
She's a Hawkeye.
Wow. How do you feel about her going to Iowa?
Oh, love it. We've always been Iowa fans, even though my husband grew up here in Nebraska. I don't know why he was an Iowa fan, and I actually almost went to medical school there. Last minute change of mind, but so we love the Hawkeyes and we love Iowa. She is definitely my adrenaline seeker. We always joke that she didn't play soccer. She was very athletic, and my son was driven nuts by the fact that she was so good, and why wouldn't she play soccer like him? And it didn't appeal to her need to take her life in her own hands. She has that adrenaline seeking. And
you can go far with that type of energy, right? You can.
You know, she just pushed herself in gymnastics. I mean, most gymnasts, the scariest things are vault and bars. And man,
the better you get, the harder the skills are.
Right, exactly. And, you know, she made the transition from gymnastics to diving her junior year of high school.
That's amazing.
You know, her junior year of high school. And it was just because of opportunity. There wasn't gymnastics in high school, and diving was available. And she ended up diving in college for a few years. And, you know, to make that transition and then dive at the D1 level is pretty unbelievable. But it was totally out of her fearlessness and that adrenaline seeking that she did. And she loved it. Her body's a little too beat up now. She's had too many injuries. And so she decided time to focus on her brain. Thank God. As a mom, I was happy for that.
That's so amazing.
So she did it. It was -5 degrees outside that day.
-5 degrees.
Yeah. And I think,
I bet she felt like a popsicle once she got out of the water.
Well, they waited in line about 15 minutes before they got to jump.
Wow.
So, and there were people who had done it many times who said it was the worst year they'd ever done it. It was the coldest it had ever been. And she did it. It was great. You know,
something she can cross off her bucket list.
And when my kids were little, they would have a competition every year to see who'd be the first kid in the lake on Memorial Day weekend. And we decided that since she jumped in January, that she has won that for the rest of her life. That, you know, she was in the lake.
Wow.
They had to cut a hole in the ice for these people who jumped in.
That's just incredible. It gives me some energy and encouragement to always pursue things that are a little uncomfortable, because on the other side of that is a beautiful, an even more beautiful version of yourself. And that's always the goal, is to unpack what's already inside of us. Now, can you tell me more about the type of patients that you see regularly? What are some of their most significant struggles with the kids you're witnessing today as a professional?
So my partner, John Andreessen, and I, we both have a lot of special needs patients.
Yes,
so a lot of kids with developmental disabilities.
You work with my son. My son has autism.
That's right. So I have a lot of patients with autism. I have a lot of patients with ADHD, but I also have a lot of kids with physical disability and you know, whether it's cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, genetic syndromes, genetics, that field has just exploded. So the kids that years ago would have been, obviously this is a syndrome because there's physical things and there's appearances, but nobody was able to put a diagnosis. Today we have diagnoses and it's fascinating. But outside that, you know, that's about probably 25% of my practice. I would say, you know, the vast majority are what we would consider well kids. And as I mentioned earlier, mental health is a big piece of that. It really is. Even before the pandemic, it was a big piece, but the pandemic really has taken its toll.
How can we as leaders in the community help our youth overcome the challenges that they're experiencing with their mental health?
Oh, that's a great question.
What are you continuing to do, and what would you recommend other people like myself, leaders out there watching this podcast? How can we contribute to helping our young people succeed as they pursue excellence with life in the classroom, in sports, or anything else that they decide to do with their time?
You know, we really, really need to educate parents, and especially young parents, about the dangers of social media and just electronics and screen time.
Yes.
I think we really absolutely
100%.
have to give kids more opportunities to be together, but in more of an unsupervised way. You know, sports are great, but what we've lost as a result of this incredible drive to participate in high-level sports is every kid has a schedule and a routine, and play dates are almost impossible to set up, and as opposed to the days when, you know, you opened the door in the morning and they left and they ran and they played with their friends in the neighborhood and they came back and ate lunch and they disappeared again until dinner. That doesn't exist. And I think what kids learned in that environment was they learned how to navigate problems without an adult stepping in.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, let's figure out, you want to play this game, I want to play that game. We can't play both, so let's figure out a negotiation. And they learned how to experience loss, you know, or failure on small levels and bounce back. Like, oh, you know, your friend won, you lost. Oh, well, let's play again, you know, as opposed to everything having to be about an award, a win in a game, you know, a record. And I think kids need that. They need to develop resilience. They need to play with other kids in a manner that they can learn to navigate life, to learn those skills of negotiation, to learn the skills of winning gracefully, losing gracefully. We lose that when we have an adult constantly there telling them how to react.
Yeah, like the helicopter, what do they call it? The
helicopter parents.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
There's a newer term called free range parents.
Wow.
And these are the
free
parents
range.
that
What's
let
the free?
Their kids,
oh, I see.
They let their kids go. And you know, we have this fear that, you know, if we let our kids play outside unsupervised, they're going to get kidnapped. We have this fear that bad things are going to happen. I think, yes,
it can be a
legitimate fear. I think part of it is also media related. I mean, they actually say there are no more kidnappings of children or, you know, violent crimes against children now than there were 50 years ago. But when it happens in Atlanta, Georgia, you hear about it in Omaha, Nebraska. And so as a parent, you're going, oh my gosh, there's this terrible world that my child is in. I have to protect them. And we think we're protecting them by stepping in, by being there all the time. But I think kids need to learn to just run the neighborhood and have that little bit of independence to learn and grow and learn to be resilient.
Yeah. What are some of the basic human needs of all, whether you're a child or an adult? You need certainty. You need some variety, uncertainty. You need to grow. You need some significance. You need to contribute to the world. And you also need to make connections.
Right.
I believe if we can help our kids understand those concepts and how it relates to their personal journey of unpacking the goodness inside of them, we'll see less challenges with mental health.
I think the connections is a huge part.
Yeah.
I feel like, you even before the pandemic, kids were isolated. And for the kids that
was a tough time,
find
but
it hard to put themselves out there, they embraced the pandemic and made themselves more isolated. And I think connection is going to be a huge piece of that.
Wow. Wow. What is your perspective on just teaching the kids? So first of all, I go to the basketball tournaments, right? And you see kids, some kids before they get ready to play, it's like the McDonald's, and I get it. It's quick, it's simple, it's an easy fix for a short period of time. But for the young people who, it's not even just about performing well on the court, but it's about performing well in life, performing well in the classroom. What are some of the perspectives you share with some of your patients? Because you talk about, mental health. I believe the tummy and the brain have a connection. They have a connection with each other, and they crosstalk. And when that crosstalk is disrupted, it can create some physical challenges.
Sure. It's easier when you're talking to kids who are involved in sports and they take their sport so seriously, because you can say it from the standpoint of, you have this passion, let's add one more layer to what you could do to be good at it. And so I actually tell them, okay, so you have an expensive sports car. You have a Lamborghini or a Maserati or Ferrari, some big expensive sports car. Are you going to put the cheap gas in it, or are you going to put the good gas in it? Okay? So you've got to put into your body what will let your body heal after every workout, after every game, and make you stronger. And you just can't get there by putting junk in there. From the standpoint of mental health, that's a tough one, because when you're dealing with kids with mental health problems, it's almost like they're frozen. It's like, the depression has them so down they can't do anything, or the anxiety has them so fearful they're just locked up and they can't. And so you have to pick little changes and just say, okay, you know what?
Small changes become
and I
big
think
changes.
With that population, the first thing I say we have to work on is sleep. Because oftentimes when you're having mental health problems, sleep is bad and you're crabby. And I always
don't add
tell
hunger in there. That's called, that's actually a term, I think it's in the dictionary now. Hangry.
Hangry, right. And so you tell your kids that, we really have to start a more holistic approach, but let's start with sleep. Okay. Sleep. And get you on a good routine.
Good routine, sleep
routine. Put the electronics away. I mean, kids have electronics younger and younger. It's mind-boggling to me how many 4th and 5th graders have like really high-tech cell phones. And so, I tell the parents, look, you got to have them park that phone in your room so that they can get a good night's sleep.
And then even just exposure to things that you don't need to be exposed to.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
100%. I'm with you
exposure to dangerous things, to bad things, but also just the constant
your self-image.
Right, the constant input, the comparison of everybody in their perfect little lives. I also tell kids that
there is no perfect life.
There is no perfect life.
I tell you, they'd be lying.
And I tell them, I say, you know what? People only post when their hair looks good, their outfit looks good, they got a great grade on their test, their team won the championship. Nobody posts when their hair looks bad, or they failed a test, or they got cut from the team. So you're seeing this little bit of their life. You're not seeing their whole life. You're seeing this little bit. But if you're having a bad day and then you start scrolling, they call it doomsday scrolling now. You start scrolling and seeing everybody's perfect life. It's very easy to just say, wow, what's wrong with me? Everybody's life is perfect and mine's not. And so I tell kids, stay off of that, use it with your closest friends, but just, feeling like you have to compare yourself to everyone out there that you don't even know.
Isn't it interesting how, as human beings, we misinterpret our experiences?
Absolutely.
The kids, we need to teach them how to be comfortable in the skin that God gave them. You are amazing. You are gifted. You are valuable. You've been given something that no one else in the world has. Everybody is different. Everybody is unique. And that's what makes this world so beautiful. If we could just focus on the greatness that's inside of us and not be so concerned with what other people are doing. Yes, we can learn and appreciate other people's gifts, but not at the expense of overlooking what we're capable of.
Right. And that's what I see the most is just this constant, I I should look a certain way, I should dress a certain way, I should talk a certain way, I should drive a certain car, you know. And it's just not what life is really about, you know, and it causes kids to connect even less, you know, their fear of being judged, their fear of being different.
Now, before we conclude our podcast, Gina, I have a couple more questions. I remember when I was a new trainer at 24 Hour Fitness. I was a young guy. That's where we met, 24 Hour Fitness, 22, out of college. And, you know, you talked about my daughter, you know, she's brilliant, amazing. She's quiet. I was like that times 10 initially. And I remember when I first got there initially, I didn't know that I had to communicate and articulate, and they pulled out the fitness manager at the time pulled out this big presentation binder, said, "Hey, Tim, we're going to teach you how to sell." I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to quit. And I go back home, I tell Taisha, I can't sell, I can't do this because I have a hard time, had a hard time communicating with people. But however, after I got more comfortable with talking to people, I got certified in certain areas, my confidence built. Did you have experiences like that? When you were new in your residency, where it was challenging initially, and maybe you felt like, okay, this is overwhelming, out of my comfort zone, I'm going to quit. But instead, you found a way to keep going.
Yeah,
and rise above the challenges.
There were several times in my life. I actually am more of an introvert and was kind of a shyer person, which a lot of people find hard to believe. In medical school, I was told multiple times on different rotations that I needed to speak up more. I needed to speak up more. I needed to speak up more. Okay, so I spent 4 years trying to speak up more. And my first month of residency, first or second month of residency, I spoke up and I got my hand slapped for it. My kiddo got admitted with severe abdominal pain. They were about to take him to the operating room to take out his appendix, even though the tests were inconclusive. And I just asked, has anybody tested him for strep? Because strep throat can present as severe abdominal pain. And apparently the person that I said this to took offense. Turned out the kid had strep. Avoided him going to the operating room, but I still got turned into my program director. So it was kind of a funny experience, because here I'd been told I need to speak up, I need to speak up, and then I didn't. But, you know. I
wonder why that person got offended. Maybe it was because you were the one who figured out the solution to the...
Because I was brand new, I don't know. Yeah. But in the end, you know, those kinds of things have their effects.
Still speak up. If there's something you need to say and you know it's right and it's going to help yourself and other people, speak up.
And that was the thing, is after that experience, I had to tell myself I did the right thing for that patient, and that you always have to do the right thing, even if the right thing is going to get you in a little trouble with someone, or somebody's not going to like it. You have to do the right thing. And then, you know, it's funny, after residency, we were about to move to Omaha, and I went to medical school in North Carolina. I did residency in Chicago. I didn't really know anybody in the medical field here in Omaha. And I knew I was going to have to step outside my comfort zone and really put myself out there. And I remember buying this goofy book called The Girlfriend's Guide to Networking. But it actually told me what I needed to do to get out there and just meet people. And it was great, because it really did help tremendously. I feel like I was able to build relationships with some of the pediatric subspecialists, where it gave me the opportunity to help my patients even more. You know, that's a problem here in town, is getting kids into subspecialists. But when you have those good relationships, you can call them and ask questions. And if you ask the right questions, they'll realize there's something really wrong with this kid. I got to get him in right away. So yeah, you know, that was, amazing. I mean, it's funny how something as silly as a book with a goofy title made a big difference.
Made a significant impact on your life. How does someone find their voice?
That's a good question. You know, sometimes through mentors.
That's so good.
I think that's so important. I had a wonderful mentor, Tom Tana, who sadly passed away, but he saw something in me and said, hey, I have an opportunity. You know, I was already doing in my practice what we consider now medical home. Back 15, 20 years ago, medical home was a brand new term about how do you care for patients and how do you do everything to coordinate care. To me, it just seemed like that was the right thing to do for families, but they were making a science out of it and teaching it to people when it just felt natural. So I said, you know, he said, well, you practice medical home already, so here's what I need you to do. I need you to give a talk to Congress. And I said, what Congress? And he said, the U.S. Congress. And I said, what? What are you talking about? He's like, you don't have to go there. You can do it, you know, remotely, but it'll be by video. And so that was my first experience doing something like that. And I mean, it was terrifying, but I prepared and I was organized and it went well. And then I got a lot of questions, which I always feel like when people ask you questions afterwards, they were paying attention. You know, you can sense that excitement in their voice. And so that was good. And then from there, the American Academy of Pediatrics, I did some training in how to lobby with politicians, and I also did some training in early brain development and working with communities on helping young families.
So brilliant. So, I love how you said
I've just been so blessed to have been in the right place at the right time sometimes, and you know, passion is a good thing, but you took advantage.
How many people are in the right place at the right time, but they say no?
Yeah,
and they don't take advantage of the opportunity. I'm so thankful for the mentors in my life. You know, my dad, my pastor, my coaches, and there were times I was a knucklehead, and I'm always communicating to, you know, even young people, clients. If you have one person in your life who believes in you, who sees something that you can't see yourself. Feedback is the breakfast of champions.
Yeah.
We don't need a whole bunch of yes men and yes women around us. We need people who are going to tell us the truth and help us grow and help us get better, even if it is uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
So amazing. You are the greatest of all time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You are too.
One more question. What's your message to the universe, this great universe?
My message
to the greatest lesson that you learned in your life you want to share with everyone?
I would say meet people where they are. That, you know,
where they are.
You have to be able to figure out where someone is and not just say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, when for them, X, Y, and Z are impossible. And maybe what we need to start with is A. And maybe it'll take us 4 or 5 months before we can reach B. But you have to meet people where they are.
I love that. We all have different capacities, different life experiences, and we need to respect each other's model of the world. That's what's helped me a lot, just speaking on my marriage alone, you know, with my connections with my wife, my kids, and even the people who come here, you know, on a regular basis. Someone comes in here the first time, I'm not going to expect them to pick up 500-pound barbell. We're going to master the fundamentals. We'll get great at the basics. If that means we train with a resistance band or work on sit-ups, work on our body squat, work on our posture. We want, as leaders, our goal is to put people in the best position to be successful. And that means start small, because when you start small, it leads to big things.
That's true.
All right. You are the bomb. All right, let's clap it up for Miss Gina. Thank you so much for gracing our podcast with your presence. You are just as bright as that beautiful shirt you have on. Everyone, let's thank Dr. Gina Coffey for being here with us today. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the TC Lifestyle Fit podcast, and we will see you soon. In the meantime, flex. You know we're going to flex. Go ahead, flex her mouth. Yeah, she's got it.
I'm wearing that shirt.
Yeah, oh yeah, looking good.
There's still some muscle in there.
There's muscle. It's there. It's there.
It's there.
Well, we love you all. Stay blessed. Do something that not only edifies your life, but also makes someone else around you a little bit better too. We'll see you soon. All right.